Anne Ali is a counter-terrorism expert who's also recently been elected to federal parliament as a Labor MP, though that's not the capacity with which we're speaking with her now. And how can we protect ourselves against low-tech terror attacks like this?
Well, certainly devastating news to wake up to this morning, and unfortunately these kinds of attacks are becoming even more and more prevalent. But there are certain things that we can do. The first thing I imagine that we'll be seeing in Paris and in France is increased target hardening, and that means more security around places that are considered soft targets, particularly places where people gather and in public places. But there are other things that we can do in terms of early detection of these kinds of lone actors or self-activators. And one of the things is that a substantial number of lone actors, particularly in the more recent past, have shown some form of behavioural change prior to carrying out an attack, particularly online and particularly in their online behaviours. A substantial number have leaked their intentions online, or who have changed their behaviours online, said something online, engaged in some kind of forum online where they're leaking their intention to escalate their violence. The other thing is as well that we've seen an increasing number of people who become self-activators, and we don't know yet in this case because the investigation hasn't started yet, but we've seen an increasing number of people who are self-activators who actually have a pathway of crime. So they may be involved in some other forms of crime, theft, assault, other forms of crime as well. And they can be already under the radar, or at least within the knowledge of law enforcement.
So, Anne, can I just pick up the point you're making about the behaviour online and how there are changes in behaviour here? That all makes perfect sense to me. The thing that concerns me about it is it feels like that's the kind of thing that's very easy to identify in hindsight. But if we're thinking about prevention, it kind of sounds like it almost boils down to we need to watch everyone who says something a bit dangerous on the internet. And I just don't know how it's remotely practical to try to keep track of all that.
It's a bit more than just saying something a little bit dangerous on the internet. And in fact, there was a research study conducted last year and some guidelines and a toolkit for identifying particular behaviours online that are strong indicators of an escalation of violence. There are certain warning behaviours like leakage, actually saying I'm going to do this in more ways than one and on several different forums, and fixation. And there is an escalation of behaviour online. There's a pattern that you can follow, a progress that you can follow online. So it's not just a matter of somebody saying something online in one or two different forums, but there is actually a whole behavioural framework around it.
So how many people would we be talking about who would follow that kind of profile? I'm just trying to get my head around. If you're in the security business, if you're in that part of government, are you having to monitor millions of people, or are you having to monitor a few hundred or thousands? Like, what scale are we talking about?
Well, it certainly wouldn't be something that you would do standalone. I guess it's a kind of a technique that would enhance already existing programs and policies that are in place. And we can't afford to be complacent about this. The more things that we can do to detect or find out early warning signs, the better place that we are in terms of stopping acts of terrorism. So, you could do, obviously, if it's very resource intensive, if you have people monitoring 100 or 200 accounts, but there are ways to also automate it and look at using scanners to look at big data or big amounts of data to pinpoint certain behaviours or certain indicators online.
Well, you're not just an expert anymore, Anne. You're not an academic. You're now a member of our parliament with all the responsibilities that comes with. Will you be advocating for more surveillance of our communications?
Look, I certainly welcome the opportunity to add value in Parliament where I can. We've had a very strong bipartisan approach to counter-terrorism policies in Australia, and that's the way that it should be in the interests of the Australian community and in the interests of national security. So where I can add value, where I can use my expertise and my experience and my skills, I'd certainly welcome that.
And how do you see counter-terrorism changes in the future affecting everyday Australians? We certainly see it at the airport, but do you see it having an impact on us in our day-to-day life?
Oh, it certainly does. You know, if you look at what you guys have termed the low-tech crimes, they're using everyday objects as a part of the terrorist apparatus. Cars, mobile phones, backpacks. And that has a profound impact on society, and it has a profound impact on how people behave. People will start adopting either avoidance or protection behaviours. So they may avoid going to public places or avoid travelling overseas. Or if they're going to those places, they might take some particularly cautionary steps in that way. And I think that we've seen that particularly since 9/11, but as we see more and more of these kinds of terrorist activities that utilise everyday objects and that target these soft targets, I think we'll see more and more of these kinds of protective and avoidance behaviours.
We appreciate your time tonight. Thanks so much, Anne.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to a break. More Project coming up. Stay with us.